Hey guys, welcome to a Cloud Developer channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to configure Application Insights, that is a service that's available in Azure, to be able to monitor our Angular application. So in the last videos, I showed you how to actually create this application as well as how to actually get it published in Azure. And the next step of being able to take it to the step of being able to actually monitor it is to configure our application in Azure portal. So what I have here is the actual application, which is if you go to your resources, you'll see that I have the clouddeveloper.io. That's our web application. And this application, you can see a lot of the details, the different elements like data in, data out, a couple other metrics and configuration data. And then in order to actually be able to see the application insights and configure it, you can do it in a couple of different ways. But I'm going to show you the way I've done it for this particular website. So when you go to the definition of your website and scroll down to monitoring section, you'll see an option for application insights. Now, when you actually click it, what it will show you is this basic view. There's no data being collected because it thinks that it's a .NET based or server based application. And really, we don't have any of our server side logic actually implemented here because it's a simple JavaScript application. Now, I've already gone and configured this. So if I click View More in Application Insights, it will actually take me to the clouddeveloper.io Application Insights resource. So you'll see some metadata here. You'll see the actual instrumentation key, and this is a key that you have to actually use in your application in order to hook it up to your code. So this is how your application will tell Azure that the metrics are coming in and should be stored for this application. Now I'll go ahead and quickly show you how to actually set it up. I have another test website that I've created simply to just show you how to do this. And if I go down to the application insights, all you have to do is just click on it. It will actually present you with this message of application insights, and it asks you, if you want to configure it. So you point it either to an existing resource or actually go ahead and create a new resource and give it the location. So I'll go ahead and hit OK here, and it's going to go ahead and start creating the application insight resource itself. The process is actually fairly quick, so you don't have to wait a lot, and in fact it's done. And you can see there's the same behavior or the same view showed up here. So if I go ahead and click on View More, you'll see that it doesn't actually have any information because it hasn't actually collected any metrics from anywhere. You'll notice also that the instrumentation key is actually different. So the reason why I showed you this is because if you try to actually create and delete the application insights, the process does take a little while. So I didn't want to have to go through that in this video and having to wait for it to be recreated again. So I'll go ahead and navigate back to my Cloud Developer IO Application Insights resource. And in here, like I said, here's the actual instrumentation key. So let's go ahead and actually go to the application that we have. And this is our Angular application. And the first thing that we're going to want to do is we actually want to install and configure the actual AngularJS module. And there's going to be two specific modules that we're going to need. It's going to be Angular Application Insights-JS, as well as types Application Insights-JS. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll do npm install Application Insights.js, and we'll go ahead and hit save, or do a -- save, and that's what will actually make sure it actually adds it to our packages JSON file and stores it here. So you'll notice that it actually appeared. And the other one we're going to actually do only for the dev dependencies. And the reason why we want to have that for dev dependencies is it's only needed for our development purposes. So, and we do this by npm install at types / application insights -js and then -- save -dev. Now, one thing you also notice is that this particular library is actually a slightly different version because it wasn't updated to accommodate all of the recent changes. Now, I haven't actually noticed any problems with that, so we should be okay. So in this particular case, we have our dependencies loaded. And the next step that I want to take you through is actually, let's go ahead and open up PowerShell and go ahead and launch the application. So what we'll do here is we'll just do ng-serve --open and make sure that the website shows up correctly. Okay, so as you can see, the website showed up. We can see that the Angular application is running in development mode. And now we can go ahead and start implementation of our integration logic. The first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to actually go ahead and create a service. And the service is going to be essentially a wrapper around the application insights so that we can easily manage it and access it and use it throughout our application. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and expand this source folder here and the app folder as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and use a generator to create a service in Angular. That is ng for generator service. And I'm going to go ahead and put it into the services folder and call it app insights. And the other important thing that we're going to want to do is we want to specify the module. And the module is going to be app.module. And what this is going to do is actually is going to automatically create the module for us, as well as go ahead and update this app.module file for us as well. So you can see it showed up right here, and inside of the providers, it shows up in this provider section. And what this actually allows us to do is use dependency injection to be able to get a reference to this module. So you also see that the new folder was created called services, and the specific app insights service got generated for us. So the first thing I'm going to actually go ahead and do here is inside of the service itself, I need to import a couple of things. So one of the things that we need is we want to actually import the environment configuration information. This way we'll be able to actually store our application insights key inside of the environment configuration and then just use it inside of the service. So I'm going to go ahead and import it here. And I'm going to go ahead and store that information inside of the environment file itself. And the other import that I'm going to do is the actual app insights itself. Okay, so our importing has completed. And now what we can do is we'll go ahead and open up this environment file. And I just clicked on it and pressed F12 on my keyboard, and it actually took me there. Or you can just find this environment.ts file and click on that. So the next step we're going to do here is we're going to actually go ahead and add the specific key for application insights. And we'll do it this way. So we'll just create a new key called app insights, and then here we're going to put in instrumentation key, and we'll provide the actual value. Now let's go back to our Azure portal, and inside of our Azure portal we see the instrumentation key right here. So I'll go ahead and copy that, and I'll just paste it right here, and I'll go ahead and save it. So now the next item that we're going to want to do is we're going to need to tell or create for our service configuration object. This is going to be something that we're going to pass into the application insights library so that it knows about the actual instrumentation key. So we're going to create a specific variable in here. and we're going to call this config. And this is an interface, so because it actually knows that it's an interface, since we actually told it to use the iConfig interface, it already knows about the instrumentation key that we need to populate. And we're going to initialize it to the environment, that app insights, that instrumentation key. Now, this is all we need to do in order to pull out that instrumentation key from our environment table or environment object and set it in this configuration object. Now, the next item that we're going to want to do is inside of the actual constructor, where we're going to want to actually check to see is the app insights initialized. So if you do this by doing an if app insights.config, and basically what this says is if the configuration is not initialized, let's go ahead and actually tell it to download and initialize. And you simply call download and setup, and you pass in this.config. And that's pretty much it. This will actually tell your service to go ahead and initialize the app insights and download all the required libraries from the CDN, which is a content delivery network. And it will pull down the app insights specific JavaScript file. So the next item we're going to want to do is we're going to add two methods in here, and there's going to be log page view. And this is going to be used to allow us to actually call page view to say when our application loads, we want to track that somebody loaded a particular page. We'll also create a log event, which will allow us to do things like if log events around components loading, or if somebody clicks on something, we can invoke the log event to be able to track that particular event. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a parameter called name, and it's going to be a string, and it's going to be required. Then we're going to specify URL, and this is going to be a string as well. And then there's going to be properties, and it's going to be of any type. And then we're going to do measurements of any type, and then we're going to specify duration, and this is going to be a number. And then all you have to do is you just call app insights track page view, and then you pass in all those parameters that you had in your method signature itself. Okay, so that was pretty simple. And then let's go ahead and create log event. Now, this one is a little bit different. We don't actually need the URL, but we do need properties. And we also need measurements. And that's it. And then again, we'll call app insights, and then we're going to say track event, properties, and measurements. So that's all we needed to do. Now, once you actually get this set up, this doesn't actually allow you to start tracking the events themselves. You actually have to initialize inside of your application this particular service so that your application can start actually issuing those events. Now, if I open up the browser, you'll see that the application is still running. I can go ahead and refresh this, and nothing is actually shown up here yet. So what I want to do next is I actually want to go ahead and go into my app components. And inside of the app components, I need to do a couple of things. The first thing is I need to actually import the App Insights service itself. And once I got that imported, everything's still working. And then the next item here, I'm going to actually want to go ahead and invoke a constructor. And inside of the constructor, I'm going to go ahead and specify what I want to do here. So specifically, I want to actually have App Insights service. And it is going to be of type App Insights service. And inside of this app insight service, inside of this app component constructor, what I'm going to go ahead and do is call app insights service, and I'll go ahead and invoke the method to actually log a page view. So go ahead and do that here, log page view, and I'll actually just give it some name that I want to have this page called. So let's call it main page. And as soon as I go ahead and do that, and I save it, we should actually be able to see a couple of things. So before I save this, let me show you the network tab here. So in my network tab, you can see that I'm loading a bunch of different files, but it doesn't actually make any calls out to any other service here. You don't see any information. Now, if I go ahead and save this, what we should be able to see now is we actually should see a track event, which is right here. So this track event itself, if we actually start investigating, you'll see that it received 2 events and it actually accepted 2 events. And then this is the data that actually came back from the service itself. So if we start looking at the actual payload here, you'll notice that the 2 events that got triggered had some metadata with it. So we'll see that it sent information about the session ID. It actually knows me as a particular user, so it can track information about me. Is it the first time, the kind of device that we're using? It has some version information and the timestamp information. And also, because the request header itself is sending information about the user agent and a couple of other pieces of metadata, it actually will be all gathered on that server, and you can actually start seeing metrics here. Now, it does take a little bit of time to actually have the data finally show up here, so we're going to have to wait a little bit longer. But I'll show you real quick. When you actually go to the actual App Insights blade here, is what they call them, you can actually see information about your application map. So what the application map is, it will actually take a look at your application and see if you have different components that your application relies on. So in this case, this is my actual application. And then here it's actually tracking the different JavaScript calls. Now, if I had a SQL service or if I had other dependent services within Azure or outside of Azure, it will actually be able to start tracking those as well. But since I don't have any of that enabled right now, it is only showing me the specific JavaScript. Now, if I click on browser, I should be able to actually start seeing some information here. And you can see, I actually had some information already gathered before, but here, it actually captured my page view right there. Now, you can also do things like click on events, and inside of events, you'll see additional information. So you can see I was tracking homepage, which is something that I've been testing with before. But in this case, this is actually tracking my information, and you can see that it captured my main page event. And you can see that it treats me as a unique user in this case. It noticed 2 unique users. There's different view sessions that are established as well. And you can start clicking through some of this telemetry to actually be able to take a look how your application is performing. So this is actually pretty powerful. And it also has information about retention to be able to see if users are actually staying on your website long enough. It depends on the kind of telemetry you're actually sending back from your application. You can get some very interesting data from this. Now, another important thing to note is if you do have something like ad blocker enabled, this functionality will actually not function correctly. So it will treat it as just like a Google Ads tracking service. So they do know about this, and it will not work for you. So, but this could be useful if you are building internal applications and/or people who don't actually use ad blockers. You'll be able to actually start getting telemetry about your information and drilling in and seeing how your application actually performs, and also get information about the users themselves if you're interested in that data. So hopefully this was useful. If you have any questions, please go ahead and leave your comments in the comment section below. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you later.